Let's just quickly see if it's working.
Yep, it says live.
All right, cool. Welcome, everybody. Today, I got a guest here for the Poker Player Podcast. He's in the poker industry for over 10 years. He's streaming regularly on Twitch 4 or 5 times a week, I would say. And he has built a community with, having viewers in 500s, and he's doing that in English and also in German. He is a member of the Poker Bros. I want to welcome Xflixx here to the Live Poker Podcast. How are you doing, man?
What's up, Andreas? Nice to be on the show, man. Really appreciate you bringing me on. That's your third show, right?
That's my third podcast, exactly. Awesome.
Yeah, I love podcasting, and I started my own, and I'm really into that. So I've never done one as a guest, so I'm really excited.
Okay, I think you have also everything on iTunes, right? That's where you have your podcast. That's where people can find it. Yes, I mean, we can also, of course, put everything in description after this stream, basically, so you guys can check out the things that we talk about here afterwards in the show notes, I would say, below in the description. So the first thing I want to ask you, Xflixx, is how did you get into poker the first 12 years ago, you told me?
Yeah, we just talked about it 12 years ago. It's actually a pretty funny story. I mean, basically, it's I guess like most of the other people got into poker in some way, or many people got into poker. It's through another different game, another strategy card game, which was Magic the Gathering at the time. I think you know it, right?
Yes, I've played it. We have played it. We've talked a little bit. Yeah,
I remember that. That's what I recall. So yeah, I was in a Magic community for a long time. Where I've actually been like a Magic player for my entire teenage years, and I started to kind of take it a little bit more serious by playing semi-professionally and traveling the tournament circuit. Like I qualified for the bigger tournaments that were in the USA. So I traveled a lot with all the other people from the Magic community, and I got into touch with poker very early because people on the Magic circuit, they've always been like playing poker, especially the Americans. That was very early, actually, like as early as like 2000 or 2000. I remember that I was in a pro tour in LA, and that must have been like 2000, and people were playing Fixed Limit Hold'em back in the day. Like Fixed Limit Hold'em was like the game to play, and all the people that I was in the community with, they afterwards they started playing Fixed Limit Hold'em, and they built really serious bankrolls with it. Like they kind of crushed the game. I recall that some of my Magic friends, like I got out of poker after I wasn't really that successful in Magic. Like I did win a world championship together with Team Germany. That was my biggest score. Like was a 10K win basically, and that was my biggest accomplishment in Magic. Like I remember that after that score, I went out of the community for quite a while, like 2 or 3 years or so. And then I came back and I heard that all the other guys that I used to play with and used to train with and used to hang out with and travel the circuit with, they had like built, I don't know, like $500,000, millions of dollars of bankrolls playing Fixed Limit Hold'em. And that was like sick to hear. And I wanted to know more about it. And then a couple of friends got me into the game, and they told me about the game, and like they taught me a few things here and there. Then I had a friend who actually sent me $100, who said like, here, have $100, play whatever you like, see if it's something for you. Tried it out and busted the entire $100, of course. That was not like, I played way too high and I didn't know what I was doing. Then I came back to him and said like, poker was not for me. And he's like, yeah, but you're not playing it with strategy. Like you have to like figure out strategy first and then like do bankroll management and stuff like that. So I never stuck to that. And after that, I thought, okay, let's give it another try. And then I used like one of these early $50 free bankrolls that you got back in the days. There were like various offers. Yep. And I swore to myself, like, I'm going to use those $50 and I'm going to turn it into like a serious bankroll and see if I can make this work. And if not, then I'm just going to quit poker. And well, at the time I was studying math. So I started building that bankroll from 50 into 1,000. And then first I played Fixed Limit Hold'em, just like the other guys. Of course, they taught me about Fixed Limit Hold'em. And then I switched slowly into no limit because that was getting more and more popular. That was like 2006, 2007-ish.
Yep.
And that's when I realized, okay, so I can actually build a serious bankroll here. And I started doing that. Besides my studies, I was studying math at the Cologne University. And that was not really like, that was something that interested me, but not something that was fulfilling to me. So math was always some sort of like, it was really an interesting topic, but it was nothing that I wanted to do professionally or like I intended to do. So I was really hoping that I could turn poker into some sort of profession back in the days. That took me about like, let me see, probably about a year to build like a 20K bankroll. And from there, I realized, okay, so I'm playing cash games up to like $1, $2 blinds. And I can actually make this work. I can actually beat this game and make enough per month so I can actually, pay my bills. And that's what I was thinking about doing when I graduated. That was basically the short version of the story. Yeah, it's about like a 2-year process, I would say, that got me into professional poker, or considering professional poker, basically.
There you have it, guys. I mean, I always love those stories and how people got into poker and then eventually, becoming winning players and getting into professional poker, basically. And yeah, it's really interesting with Magic the Gathering, because I have also seen those winners in Magic the Gathering. I think it was around 2004 to 2006 or so. Not really sure, but I was at the local national championship, but like just in Switzerland. So it was among the last 100 or so. And then I checked basically those international players, and then later on found out that the transition to poker, I think it was players like Gabriel Nassif that eventually ended up playing poker. I remember Gabriel, and he's now transitioning to being a chef, I believe, right? Like he's now enjoying being,
I still think he plays Magic, and he also was like, I think he was sponsored for some time as a poker player as well. I don't know, but like he was in poker also for quite a while.
Yeah, it was pretty good, and he certainly made a lot of money playing poker. And I just remember him as a Magic player, and it was like another.
He was really good.
Yeah. So these guys often, now ended up crushing poker just because of their strategic background. And yeah, I always enjoyed those strategy games, and I was amazed when I discovered poker after Magic the Gathering as well. So that's some similar background, I would say, with just all the strategy games, although some other strategy games in the past.
Funny you say that. Last week, sorry to interrupt. Like last week, I was doing a live training session, live training class for German streamers that stream Fortnite. They play a little bit of some played a little bit of poker, and most of them like never really play poker at all. And I coached 3 of them, and they instantly got like the key concepts of poker, because they kind of started to compare it with Fortnite concepts. Like it's so similar, and like they started describing things that were going on in poker, like with Fortnite strategies or Fortnite situations. They were comparing it. So it's really, you see that the kind of same strategic approaches and synapses, or whatever you want to call them, like it's kind of a thing for strategic gamers to really get a good grasp of poker, because it's so pure. It's like, it's the base. I think it's the base strategy game, like with no bullshit. There's no bullshit around. It's just like pure cards, math, and the chips. And like you have to figure out the basic strategies. And
and just a little bit of RNG, basically, right?
Yeah.
But it was a little bit in echo. I don't know why, but not sure. But what really happened after PokerDoor is I had a lot of strategy game where I was ready for the next strategy game to get into that with full enthusiasm. And after poker, there was no new strategy game. Maybe Hearthstone I enjoyed quite a bit, but I was never going into that game with full enthusiasm anymore. So poker was kind of my last game where I tried to push myself a lot to become really good at it. And I think that has a lot to do with, that other players are already really far, and it can be kind of scary, to basically try to become as good as well, because you have so many other things to do. So I think the younger you are, the more likely you will end up pushing yourself to get to the top. Whereas now I'm 29. Now when I look at the new game, I look at it as an entertainment, but I don't look at it as from the perspective of maybe as a 20-year-old, because as a 20-year-old, I discovered poker and I thought, oh man, I can really become good at this and, get it to the top. But now when I look at the new game, I wouldn't ever like think about transitioning for real. Like, how does that, if you see a new game, is that similar in your shoes?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when I started out, I was really like, I had nothing for myself on the side. Like I had like my math studies and I didn't really know what to do or what I was going to do in the future. So math, like poker was basically kind of my outlet for my, like, it was sort of my hobby, but it slowly turned into like an obsession. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of young people. I mean, you hear the same stories from great people like Fedor Holz or whoever you mentioned. Like, give me some names of the top poker players out there, and they will all tell you the same things. They at some point they were young, they were hungry, they were obsessed with something, and they just like really like put their ass on the line to just study the game hard and just get into it and like do it 24/7. And I think that's what I did in the beginning as well. I remember that like vividly. Like I sat here in my apartment, like grinding, fixed them like a madman, and like talking poker with other people, and that was like 24/7. That was my day basically. And I think that's really key to actually make it in such a field. And back in the days, it was of course it was a lot easier. Like the strategies you could use were very basic and very simple, and you could like just apply some basic concepts and good bankroll management, and you were set to go to start building a bankroll. But I think like it's kind of that kind of mentality still hasn't changed. I would look at it like if I look at other games where you have to get successful, like I've heard from the Fortnite streamers, for instance, that I was talking to them, pretty similar thing. Like they were professional gamers before that in other games as well, and they kind of like found that obsession, that obsessive niche that they really like wanted to master. And I think that's the same kind of deal with poker. You just gotta, if you really want to rise to the top, if you really want to make it to a certain point, like you got to be, at some point, you got to be obsessive with a game somewhat, I think.
Yeah. And also, I think when it comes to games in general, and I think a lot of people watching these podcasts can take away so much from it, from like the attitude that you have behind it. And certain games have a certain skill set. And I think for poker, I also thought that, yeah, my skill set would fit a lot. I also had a lot of fun with numbers. I was also very fast in my childhood calculating things. So I was predestined to, probably become good at poker. Whereas when I look at other games, I always ask myself, well, would this game suit my abilities? I'm like very technical. But whereas when I was younger, I'm maybe, this is fun. Let's just go for it. And I think it has to be both. It has to be the analytic part a little bit, like with an adult, but also the maybe more childish side to say, okay, this is fun. Let's go for it. And if you pair that up, it's going to make you a much stronger player, and it keeps you hungry and everything. I think there's a lot of elements to how to become good at something. And, recently I basically look at it and say, okay, I also have to have that, staying hungry, that more childish element to it, becoming good at something.
100% agree. 100% agree. I think it's like when you start out and you don't think about it and you just like enjoying like studying and playing and whatnot, and you don't really think about it that much. It's the best way you can start something. It's the same thing that I figured out with Twitch or with streaming. Like basically it was just like I was doing it because it was so much fun and I enjoyed it so much. And I thought like, I could combine the two, streaming poker because I enjoy streaming. I like doing content. I like interacting with people. It's kind of, I like presenting stuff. I like explaining stuff. And it's like that, as you say, that childish drive to kind of just do things and like figure them out and just don't really think about it that far ahead, basically.
Yeah, I think that's super important. So how would you say, did streaming help you to make poker more engaging again? Or did you ever have like a drop of poker engagement?
Yeah, I think streaming is the most important tool ever to actually still keep poker interesting to me. Because what I've realized is at some point I was figuring out, at some point of my professional career, so to say, well, I was always good enough to make a living with cash games, but I was never good enough or not, say, hungry enough to rise to the top. I was never that kind of guy that said, okay, I want to rise to the top. Because I found other areas where I really found my drive towards, or my interests rising up. And I was always kind of like a creative guy. I always had this creative itch inside me to do something that is like, that just creates and presents something to other people, and that gets feedback. And like this is something that you don't like, that's not easily fulfilled with poker. Poker is like, it's a very, very basic game, and like it fulfills your if you do it right, it fulfills it pays you the bills, or you can actually get some fulfillment in form of like you master the strategy or whatnot. But there's just very little interaction. Even though you interact with people at the table, you take their money basically. That's pretty much what you do. There is not much interaction with people, and there's not much like there's not much in terms of relationships or in terms of something that fulfills you. And that was always missing for me in poker. And I realized slowly, like I could say, okay, so my professional grind was going like this. And I was like plateauing at some point where I said, okay, so here's the game that I still beat, that I'm good enough for. And like, how long can I go on grinding this and pay my bills until I kind of realize, well, it's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is something that I need to find something that fulfills me, or that gives me like that positive energy every day to say like, I'm really pumped to do this.
Yeah.
And that was always like creating content. And I realized that creating content is that other thing that really was my itch. And I had to kind of scratch that. So I was pretty happy that PokerStars also had this PokerStars school. They had IntelliPoker back in the days, and they got me on board pretty early on. And I had my first experiences with live training sessions. Like those were sort of the first Twitch streams that weren't really Twitch streams, because you had no camera. It was just a basic hand replayer. You just had like an audio thing. You just answered people's questions, and you could present some stuff. You could present like I don't know. You could present a slideshow and present concepts to people and answer their questions in the chat. So that was pretty, like, I always found like after I finished that session, I had a level of fulfillment that I didn't feel with poker, that I've never felt with poker before. And I thought like, okay, so I have to give this a try. Like, this is something that really is for me, probably. Like, I have to do some form of interaction, some form of like getting this kind of feedback from people, and like creating something that has value for others and getting something in return from them, which is mostly like appreciation or some love or some, thank you for giving me that input, help me in my game or whatever. Kind of gives me a good feeling about it. So that's what I started out. And then when Twitch came along, I found that this kind of really made poker interesting for me again, because like, back to your question now, because that was the initial question, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like poker itself, if you grind it, if you play it, it can be very boring at times, can be like very, I wouldn't say dull, but could be very repetitive, could be very like, you do get into new spots and you analyze them, yada, yada, yada. But it's not this thing that like, streaming gives you, that interacting with other people can give you. And that's what I felt through Twitch. And so combining the two, because I still love poker, I like the game, I love the game a lot, and it gave me a lot. So I kind of felt this is the perfect match, basically, for me personally, and just gave it a try. So I think, yeah, it definitely made it more engaging. And what I realize now, building my Twitch stream, is I think that's the thing that kind of keeps poker alive for me, or like really keeps developing poker in a way that I want to see it develop in the future.
And I mean, I cannot not describe, how grateful I'm also for people who promote poker in a way that you do, to the people out there, that people can, look at someone streaming for hundreds of people, and, that poker is just a normal thing, like playing any other game, that it's just not putting into gambling. And there we also go to like a question from the chat that unfortunately many people, Jules says, compare poker with gambling, or gambling only, and I think it's very dangerous. But what I also find interesting about the way you describe keeping poker engaging with streaming is that I've noticed something similar in my life as well. And yeah, in some areas of poker, I've been plateauing as well. I obviously can admit it as well. It depends on what game, of course.
Yeah.
But then I rediscovered it with a little bit with solvers, because they helped me see how far away I'm still from good poker.
Right.
Seeing poker as an art of how you can develop your game to a really high level, and just play well. And I have to remind myself that should be my main premise of playing poker, because otherwise I would get bored with the game if I don't see it as an art, if I don't see it as something that I can develop, if I don't stay hungry in that sense. I'm going to have problems. And there's also this book that I always have on my desk, and it's funny because it supports my wrist, basically. So, yeah. But I always have it on my desk nevertheless, and I read it. It's Mastery by George Leonard, and it's it's actually one of my favorite books that I've read in the last 3 years, because it gives me a different angle as well to how I see mastery of any craft, because it looks at everything from a critical standpoint, that you might as well be also a dabbler. So I have to ask myself, am I really the person who, as soon as I hit that plateau, in poker, for instance, move on to another craft and try to master that, and then fail mastery everything that I cross in my life forever? That's really the critical standpoint that this book shows you. And I think that this, learning this has been of the most mind-blowing things that I've learned in the last 10 years, because it shows me, okay, you always have to ask yourself that question. Whether you're a poker player, whether you're anything that you do in life, are you just a dabbler that as soon as he hits that plateau, as he doesn't get any better, as he doesn't, ladder up in his career path, are you just going to move on to something else because you fear you're going to stand on that platform forever? Can you not take it if you're somewhere that you're not going to move on? Are you not just capable of taking that plateau? Yeah. And that's something I had really asked myself honestly, and partly I would say yes, that was the case. I couldn't take it not becoming so much better fast, because that's what happens in poker is you become better really, really fast. Yeah. But at some point you hit that plateau. It might be because you don't have, any more coaches that can teach you something for like a reasonable price. And that for me has been pretty tough. Like I would be super happy for a coach for like $150, $200 an hour if he's like really good and shows me the game for a different angle, but they don't exist. Like I would say shout outs to like anyone who's coaching for like my hours, like 100 or something. But if someone coaches for 150 or 200, like if you have to teach me anything still, send me a message. I'm sure you could sell me something, but be sure that you're ready. Because I'm especially, for example, for No Limit Hold'em, there's probably like the best coaches there, just a little bit outside my reach probably when it comes to early. So yeah, that's basically something that I've learned, and it's very similar to your story. Another question that we have in the chat is also, just because of your path, so that we don't go back to it later, do you now play mainly tournaments? That's what Jules is asking, I think, or no, TD in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I used to play cash games only, and I really never had a fable for tournaments at all. Like I never really looked into them. I always considered them to be, as you always say, like we used to say, LOL documents. So it's like, I don't really was into tournaments at all, but actually, Nicky, you actually applied for his team. So you played for his team on the Pro Battle. Well, Nicky is a tournament player, and he started out playing tournaments or built his bankroll with satellites, with splash satellites. Really odd niche that he found. Yeah, so he basically kind of like gave me that inspiration to just try it out and give it a try. And he was like saying, hey, why are you looking at tournaments so critically? I mean, it's good. I built a bankroll with it. You can do it too. Others could too. It's also maybe more interesting on Twitch. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, so on cash games, what I've been doing the past, I don't know how many years, I've been playing the same levels. I've never gotten past a certain level. Like when I did hit the next level, I was usually dropping down again because of like some sort of mix of, a bad play, downswing, whatever, you name it.
Sure.
It's like this plateau effect that we just talked about. And I was like thinking exactly the same question I was asking myself. So do I so I combined the thing like that I love the most, like streaming poker on Twitch, which is awesome. Like this gave me fulfillment, but now I'm like moving on to the next stage. So what is the content that I actually want to produce? What is the content that excites me every day? And cash games have excited me, of course, because I built a bankroll with them, and I wrote books about them, and I made videos about them. I made tutorials about them. I coached people with them, and I still give people advice and training classes on my streams every day. And it's cool. It's a lot of fun because it's like kind of like the routine that you have, and like it's the expertise that you have, and it's cool. But like I found like there needs to be some sort of new challenge, and I said, well, let's give it just a try, because there's other people on Twitch that are streaming tournaments, and it seems to be quite fun. So let's give it a try. And then once Nicky was sitting behind me, I was like randomly registering a $22 six max tournament, and I shipped it for $1,000. And that's what got me hooked. Like I'm like, okay, wow, I can actually maybe win a tournament here and there, and it's actually fun because I streamed it on Twitch. And just by trying out, basically, it was like, I found this thing and try to, okay, so let's see. My Shark Scope says like minus 11K. Let's get this up, I've always been investing into tournaments in sort of like a fun way. I've always like played random tournaments here and there. I never really focused on them. That was not my way of making money. So it was more fun on the side, like a random Sunday playing some tournaments that I liked. But then I said to myself, well, now I have a new challenge, like get that graph up. And that's where everything started. So yeah, I started to take tournaments seriously, and I found that for Twitch, it's a good concept because it tells a story. Like Twitch is about storytelling also. Like you want to actually give people some sort of content that has, I don't know, that's well packaged. Like it's not, you can either be super entertaining, and I'm probably somewhat entertaining, I would say. I'm somewhat knowledgeable about cash games. Like I'm so and so on most areas, but like I'm not really, like there's not really that story that I'm telling. Like either I'm doing a challenge for cash games, like I did back in the days where I did this 80 to 8,000, which I didn't want to do again because I've done it so many times. And like I was getting sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say fed up with it, but sort of like, let's do it again. Okay, I don't know. I could still do it. I probably should, and I probably could. And people are still asking about it, and they would really get excited. But it's not, there's no more itch to scratch there. So it's not like I have to show people like I want to do this again right now, even though it would be interesting to see, even for me. So tournaments was a new challenge, and I just enjoyed it so much. And then it started to slowly turn around. I started to study content as well. Started to look into what other streamers and other people were doing in tournaments, learned from Nikki a lot. And basically right now I've actually managed, like from the start of the year, tell the story from the start of 2018. I kind of told the story in my stream how I slowly turned into a profitable winning small stakes tournament player. Like I beat tournaments up to like $30. Mm-hmm. After that, I'm not so profitable. I'm like breaking even, like break even-ish. But up to that point, like I'm finally a winning player. Like my Shark Scope goes like this again. I still have to put it on like up above the zero, but that's still keeping me going. And it's like, okay, I want to do this, and it's a new challenge. So it's pretty cool, and it kind of gives me a new feel for poker. That there is still other formats out there. There's still a lot to learn, and there's still a lot of fun to have as well. Because as I said, like when you play the same games for a long time, you kind of like, when you're at that plateau level, you kind of like, am I really learning anything new here? Am I really like developing myself as a person, or do I really learn something new? In order to provide people with value or with content, like I also have to make sure that I also learn a lot at the same time, so I can actually pass on that content or that value.
Sure. What I really find an interesting element of what you just said is the storytelling of tournament poker. And here's where I think the story is told the wrong way, at least from my perspective. That's just because I think differently about poker. And that's from the results-oriented standpoint. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, they underestimate variance and what that really means within the terms of poker by like 10x, 100x. It's incredible. And I belong to that group as well for a long time, and I probably still underestimate it quite a bit. And that is basically when I improved my game the most. I started losing for like 2 years or 1.5 years, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 tournaments straight, and won like maybe a big 22 or something in between. Mm-hmm. And what I would really love is more people telling, like that's where I would, for example, tune in more by people telling the real story, like by showing exactly their database screenshot. They don't have to show me all their stats, like how much they're check folding on the flop, turn, and river on different textures, not to give away too much weakness, but just, show it, like how much BB per hundreds do you have in your database? How does that transfer to your Shark Scope graph? Right. And I think way too few people have that transparency. I try to be really transparent and show it to people. Like people don't really, like a lot of people don't really care, but I would, for example, care a lot, because that would, for me, be the whole story, right? That would say, okay, basically the behind the scenes of any poker player, like how do we really do? Because I've seen people, they sun run for like $50,000, $100,000, and they're not even winning players. Like maybe by 1 or 2 big blinds per 100,
Right.
and it's a joke like how much they're running above VV. And then some other people who would really actually be crushing it on multiple sides, grind like forever. Not me, but like other people, and they don't win because they just don't get those runs. And it's often also because they play in big fields, and I've talked with that about with Mickey Mouse as well. Because he said also smaller fields are obviously greater. I mean, we've known that for a long time, but they help you a lot to smooth out variance because you're going to have those experiences as well. Like, how do you feel if you don't final table for 500 tournaments?
Oh, yeah.
That feels really terrible.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does.
And I think we're like, all these negative experiences they're outweighing the positive experiences. That's how we're wired.
And that's kind of like also part of the story is like telling people, what the setbacks are and what the frustrations are. Like, a day like today, I stream for 3 hours, and like I win some money in cash game. I drop it all in tournaments, and they see how it works. Like, I bust out of the tournaments with the most standard situations, and people just see the daily grind. Like, people see how the variance is, and like it's actually like you don't have to sugarcoat it. You just have to present it as it is, and it's part of the game. It's part of why poker is actually profitable, because there is these things as fallacies for people that think they actually did the right thing, even though they won and they think they did the right thing, so it justifies their decision making. But I really think it's coming down to telling that entire story. People want to see how you deal with the setbacks. People want to see how you actually get up on your feet and do the grind again. And that's what's always been like I would say my strength, because I've been like a very consistent worker. I've been very, very consistent in plugging in my hours. Like when I really believe that I want to do this, like I'm sitting there every single day, and people know that. And when they tune in, they know, okay, that's the story, and that's the truth behind it. That's actually the truth. So, and I'm not hiding, as you say, I'm not hiding anything. Like, people come into my stream, I have like that negative shark scope, and they think that how can you be a professional player? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I've never really played tournaments in any way, in a professional way, and I want to show you how I deal with that and try to turn it around. And that if I succeed, that's kind of like that's a great story to tell. That's the story that I want to tell. And
absolutely.
And it's like if you put it all out there, there's nothing to attack you for. There's nothing to you want to just show the truth. It's just the way it is. That's just the way the game is. And I know that from the start, because I've built bankrolls with cash games, and I've had my own setbacks, and I had to deal with them on my own. Now we have Twitch. We have like a community. We have people that are connecting with each other and that are like helping and motivating. And you're there, like I'm there. We're streaming there out there on Twitch, so people can actually like relate to us, connect with us, like. Load up some motivation, and that was something that I never really had back in the days, and that was lacking for me in poker, and that's what I really appreciate about this Twitch thing, or about this community thing, and I think that's also part of the story. That's very, very important.
How do you basically not get really negative when things go really badly? For me, for instance, it's really tough if I, for instance, in PLO cash games, if I do like this micro stakes challenge and I have like 10,000 hands where I basically have a relative edge of like 15 binds over those 10,000 hands, and they get raked away. And I should have even more than that to make money, basically. So when I see that break-even graph for like 10,000 hands, which unfortunately is actually happening, I basically have very hard time to be taking that, because I know I'm like that far ahead with my game from like my opponents, because I'm trying to showcase that I'm building a bankroll.
Yeah.
Like what do you tell someone like me to not get so negative?
That's a fun question, actually, because I've been thinking about this. Like I'm thinking, when was the last time that I was really negative about like a frustrating or negative experience in poker? And I really have to think back a long time, I must admit. Like since the start of the year, so start of the year, probably when I started out in tournaments, that was kind of like a very frustrating period where I really had to learn a lot. I was still losing. I lost even more. And then I had to grind it back up again, and I finally did it, but it was not after 3 months or so. So I had like a 2.5 months like downswing stretch as well, starting the year. And that was kind of like that was the last time I was really thinking back in a sort of frustrated way. But other than that, like what I felt is as soon as I did exactly what I was just talking about, like connecting with my community and like telling them what I'm trying to do and giving them like answering their questions and like giving them some sort of positive outlook on the game, knowing that I'm kind of in that, I wouldn't say representative function, but I kind of have to I have to practice what I preach. So I kind of try to take things in a very positive way. And I laugh at bad beats. I put up my clips out there. I don't know, like on my Instagram, like basically people are just laughing at my bad beats all the time. And I think it's a fun way to deal with this. And that's what helped me as well, because I really have a hard time. Like the last time was really negative about a poker downswing or something was actually way before Twitch, or when I was playing a game that I didn't enjoy. And that was like at the end of the time, my cash game experience, when I was playing too high at stakes where I couldn't beat them anymore. So that was what I didn't enjoy, and that kind of also fell back on my mood on the stream, I would say. And that's when I realized, okay, I got to change something. Like this is not good for me. This is not good for me, and if it's not good for me, it's not good for what I'm doing. And it's not good for people that I'm like trying to reach. So I can't let this happen.
That's really funny, because for me it's a complete opposite. Like you say, maybe a game's too high. Like for me, it might also not be enjoyable to play.
It's too low.
500, right? Because at 500, I know I have a chance of not being a winning player, and that's somehow shitty. But I still gonna try and take shots.
Right.
But when I go too low, like 5s and 10s, and I said to all the people, look, I'm gonna turn this $24 into $1,000 no matter what. Or I'm gonna try, so I'm gonna keep on trying, even though I'm extremely frustrated with like how much money gets split away by Rake. And that's a little bit just an isolated thing for PLO cash in particular, because Rake is double from no limit cash. And I think in cash game in general, I think I might even in the future transition back to tournaments online, at least if the Rake situation gets worse on Stars in particular, because the edge gets realized just way better in a tournament setting with a good structure over the long run, maybe not on the short run, but on the long run for sure. So tournaments have now again taken over a little bit, and I should have gone into cash games earlier on, because I think skill is much better built in cash games for deep stack poker, like understanding so many concepts. And in short stack poker, it's nuances. There's a different skill set for it, but there's less applicable concepts for short stack poker. You're at some point limited. But the Rake is taken at the beginning of the tournament, and that's it. You're then going to, everything that you take from your opponents is somehow going to manifest itself over the long run. That's the beauty about tournament poker. So
just coming back to your question one more time, I was just thinking about it. I think the best tip I can give for people that are getting frustrated with something is like ask yourself, like you were saying, ask that question of when you're plateauing, can you not take it anymore? Like, are you really willing to take it for a longer period, or do you really want to move on? I think the question you really have to ask yourself is like, is that something for the last 4 weeks, 2 months, half a year? Is that something that really got you going when you get up in the morning? Like when I get up in the morning, I'm looking forward to stream tournaments. I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. I'm really pumped. And even if I lose, I don't care, because I know like I can do this. I know I can, like, I'm working on my game, and I put in the volume, and like I got the stream and everything. So I'm really pumped to do this. And I think the best thing you can ask yourself is this still fun to me? And as long as it's fun, we were also talking about this in the beginning, I think, like when you say this childish drive, I think this childish drive is very important. You have to listen to that. It's like it tells you what's right and what's not right. So not to say it's not, I don't want to downplay that it's important to also have the work ethic and to put in like, and to be able to take frustrations and to deal with that. That's a totally different thing. But like, even when I got frustrated in poker, if I'm still like, I'm getting up in the next morning, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to grind again. That's when I know, okay, I still want to play this game and not something else. So probably that's the best tip I could give.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'm going to finish the challenge, but I'm probably gonna, like, what I definitely learned from the challenge the most is that I'm not gonna do this challenge again.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't want to tell that story. I want to go into basically games where I find strong opponents, and I'm going to struggle against the opponents and not against the rake. And maybe you know, in PLO Fast and Tencent, it's basically about, you know, creating a bigger edge than you already have against your opponent, so you can win faster. It's basically just a race against time, and the more hands you play, the more even your graph will look like, etc. So it's not that I'm obviously not winning heaps in the challenge in terms of win rate, but at the same time, super annoying, of course, that you know, there's not much benefits other than that than to just prove a point, which I maybe shouldn't have done. But now I'm there, I'm gonna finish it and see how I'm gonna struggle through with it, and then maybe go into other projects than just that. Like, for example, this podcast, which, you know, is much more fun to me to stream this compared to like a bankroll challenge day. But I still want to show people basically with the bankroll challenge that the dream's still alive. You can still do it, especially if you play a few tables, if you focus on really playing every hand well, etc. Even in PLO cash games, even though rake is really high. But it's not like 3-4 years ago with great rake back, etc. Except for when you hop maybe and game select site or overall sites and have some deposit bonuses, etc. But I tell that people all the time. That is also important. Now, the next question to you is like, what has poker taught you in life? Like, where do you draw conclusions from what you experience in poker over to life? Do you have an example with it?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson is basically just like get up after the setbacks. Like, you have to. Like, the alternative sucks. You know, if you like don't want to take the beats, or you don't want to take the variance, then don't play the game. And that's the same with everything else in life. I think that's what I also learned in everything else. That's the one big lesson, I would say. It's also something that I got taught early on with my chronic disease, because I had like a chronic disease which set me back in a lot of things in life. Like for about a year or so, I couldn't finish my studies. I had to put them on hold. Then when I came back, I found poker and I started playing poker, and I kind of like learned through poker that this is something that I have to deal with. You know, it's just something that I have to overcome, and it's just, there is no other alternative. Like, if like the alternative sucks. So basically what I have to find is like, I have to find, you know, what I really want to do, and if that's what I want to do, and if I'm really like happy about it, like I also have to deal with the frustrations of it, and like the frustrations of as you say, like you know, sometimes not advancing or plateauing. And then as we also discussed earlier, at some point like re-ask yourself and reevaluate and say, okay, so maybe I try to find something new, but still get up from the setbacks and recover from those losses and those bad beats that you get in life as well. Like, anything can happen. Like, things you can't control in life, who cares? Like, you can't change the weather, you can't change the things that happen to you. You can only change how you react to them. And that's what you learn through poker all the time. Like, you learn it every single hand, basically. Like, you have to react. You have to anticipate. Yeah, you have to, like, anticipation is very important, and also strategizing. But most important is how you react to when it doesn't go the way you actually want it to with your strategy. And that's something to figure out. And also not to be, when it comes to the results, like not to be results oriented and to draw the wrong conclusions and to go back and say, okay, so this went wrong, so my strategy must have been wrong. And if you still believe in your strategy and you still think the strategy is good in the current environment, whatever that is, in business or in a relationship or in whatever life, you know, kind of brings at you, then you have to stick to that. You have to stick to those principles. And that's probably that's lesson number one: recovering from the setbacks and sticking to strategies if you believe in them and the principles, and not deviate just because of bad results or small sample sizes and bad results on small sample sizes, so to say.
Sure. So you're already someone who says like poker has a, you know, very positive messages. There's a lot of people out there who would say poker has a lot of negative sides to it, like any, you know, because it has the gambling element in it, because people lose money in it. Like the majority these days, maybe not only 80%, but these days 95% of the people are losing money in this game because of rake getting tougher on people. Poker is definitely being pushed a little bit towards a gambling game, not altogether, because the skill element is always going to be there in some form, unless people raise the rake in tournaments to 20% and in cash games to like 6-7%. That's basically where the skill element gets almost exclusively shut out of the game. But totally, I agree with you that it has a lot of messages that you can learn from it, not just as a game, but also, how you can take things in general, how you can deal with whatever happens to you in your life. And
it's just a matter of perspective, basically. And I think that's what it can teach you. Of course, it can also like anything else in life, if you kind of treat it in the wrong way, or if you treat your bankroll in a bad way, or you play the wrong games, or I don't know, you make bad decisions all the time. That's something that will happen to you in every area of life. And I think that's always like the matter of how you look at it, the matter of perspective, and the matter of what you're willing to learn from something that you do like this. So
and last but not least, also the technical aspects of the game as poker, learning about your opponents, learning about other human beings, what their strengths are, who is basically in the business world, who's going to be a dangerous person to work with or work against or work for, whatever. It has so many elements to it that I think people, like everyone, that's my opinion, everyone could learn something from playing poker. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially if they're playing for the first time. Like if you put 9 random people on a poker table, you see how, if you could give me something else that is not poker, that puts me in an uncomfortable situation in a social setting, like poker, but it's not poker, I would sign up immediately. Like I would be the first person to sign up and say, okay, I'm going to sit down with 9 people in this poker setting and say, okay, you see those people, they're super uncomfortable. Like even if they're super, if they're
super outgoing,
they're like actors, actresses, they have a lot of confidence, but then they sit down at a poker table and they don't know what to do with their chips. And it's so amazing for me to observe that. And it proves to me the point that poker can be very good for people if it's marketed the right way, if can show people the good elements of it. That's like
so fun that you say that. It's very, very fun, because I've been doing those TV shows with, like, not TV shows, but Rocket Beans TV shows with people that are from the also from the acting, from the influencer, from the gaming business, and you put them into a context where they have no clue what they have to do, and all of a sudden, as you say, they get super uncomfortable, and you see them like out of their comfort zone. And I think that's the point where you realize, okay, maybe they can, like, if they do it right now, they can really learn a lot here. Like everybody can learn a lot from each other, and this is really something that really also that really makes me get excited about poker all the time. And I love going to those shows for that reason, because I want to see that uncomfortable feeling. I want to see, like, how are they reacting, how are they treating it, like who's dealing with it in the right way, who's doing it in the wrong way, who's learning fast, who's not learning at all, and why, and so forth. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I think the reason why we both find it so interesting is because we're teachers. We love learning. We love learning happening. And when somebody's actually at the start of it, we might even miss that excitement in learning poker ourselves. So we look at it for that in other people. And when we teach people, then sometimes, you can see that excitement about new strategies. And at the beginning, you learn everything, all the new strategies. So you're going to be extremely excited about, maybe uncomfortable, but at the same time curious. And curiosity is really something that I love seeing in people when they learn. That's why I started teaching as well, before I went into playing poker. And but then it ended up deciding myself for going the poker path. But I will always have teaching as an element in my life, because I think it's very important to me. I love teaching things to people. And as I'm these days working a lot on thinking around poker and what it really does, because for me, if I don't know, I'm going to ask you the 7 questions. If you just look at your life and say, okay, you're a poker player, no, you're not. Like, this is not how you define yourself, right? You don't look at your entire life, oh, I'm going to play poker for 40 years, but I'm going to make my money playing poker. No, that's not what the life you want to live, right? Or is it?
No, like, exactly. I would never really define myself as something, to be honest. Like, I would define myself in phases of my life as studying something, or being a student of a craft, or of an art, whatever. Like when I was studying math, I was basically a math student. When I did my diploma, I could say, okay, I'm a graduate. But like afterwards, people would come up to me and say, yeah, well, you're a mathematician. And I'm like, no, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not practicing that craft at the moment. Like, how can I be a mathematician? I've done that for a couple of years. I'm playing poker now. So people go ahead, okay, so now you're a poker player. Now you're a professional poker player. And I say, okay, so now I'm like a professional poker player for 3, 4, 5 years, whatnot. And then I suddenly start to find Twitch, and people ask me, are you still a professional? And I'm like, no, I can't call myself a professional poker player anymore. I'm going to be I don't know, an influencer, a Twitch streamer, a content creator, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, I can think about, okay, I'm starting to opening a business. I'm starting to opening a shop. I'm doing things that an entrepreneur does. So I could say, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. But it's all these things. Like, you can't. I think I don't want to put a label on myself, because I'm constantly developing myself, and I don't know where that path will take me. And like the craft that I'm practicing right now is being a poker player and streaming poker on Twitch and being an influencer, being an ambassador for the game. But that could change, So that's not what I define myself as.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think the whole topic is hilarious. When people ask me, what do you do? Like, sometimes I say I'm a poker player, but sometimes I do play poker. But people, they want to label you. They want to say, okay, what do you really do? What do you earn your living with? And then also, that you basically, and then they laugh at, like entrepreneurship or something. But then there's also the people that just think that sounds good.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a really interesting topic, but. For people, I think what they really are still super uncomfortable with in general is like being self-employed, doing your own thing. And what I learned also in the last 10 years with poker is doing your own thing, really having trust in that you're good to go. And the thing is, there can be external factors that you have absolute no control over that could happen in the future. And that's really scary. Like, let's put a situation where Germany, where you live, they made the factors, like, let's not say for you, but for some future Xflixx who would try to do the same thing, but he doesn't get like he doesn't have the audience yet. He needs time to build that. You build it for a decade. He doesn't have the sponsorship, but then he actually has the same passion, but he will not succeed because maybe a country like Germany will just interfere and come up with some random numbers about poker winnings and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about. Sure. And that is something that's really dangerous for poker. And I hope that's also why I want people to tell the poker story more often and understand it fully, because then we don't have to deal with all this bullshit that's out there that's like trying to come up with those numbers that people are earning, because they're not. Damn it, now I have the English terms not in my head, but it's your net winnings are obviously not the net cashes, right? It's like there's a huge difference. And people, they're just going to sometimes come up with random bullshit that's gonna not make it able for someone to be self-employed in Germany, especially. I'm glad that in Austria it's at the moment better. It's a little bit unclear. Like, a lot of poker pros are in Austria, but in Germany, I think it's much worse. In Switzerland, it's getting much worse. In so many countries, being or playing poker at the moment is not the thing you want to do for just legislation reasons. And I actually absolutely hate that, because it's just people don't understand what poker is, and that they should just let you be for a while, because you're not, like, very few people in poker get super rich anyway. Like, why would they even care so much about ruining the whole poker player being by just having an overtaxed and over-regulated situation, which is something that I definitely think is a threat to poker. And that's also where I want to ask, what do you think is next to that, the biggest threat to poker? And then afterwards, what's good for it? What do you think?
Biggest threat to poker? I actually have not ever thought about something like that. Like, I remember that's funny that you asked, because I remember that I was once invited to another interview on a different site where they were talking about the topic, like, what's going wrong in poker. And I'm like, why are we focusing on this? Like, let's talk about what can we do to make poker better. I'm not thinking like this. This is not how I'm wired. Like, I'm never wired to look at like the things that are, of course, you have to look at some things that are going wrong. Of course, and you can probably fix them, or they can be fixed, or whatnot, and they can be discussed, and there can be lobbies for that and whatnot. But like, I'm trying to look at the same thing that poker teaches me all the time is like, what can I do? What's in my power to influence what I can influence? Like, what do I have control over? And I have control over, you know, what I stream, what kind of content I put out there, what kind of people I try to reach. I have influence. I can have an influence on my community, and I can like give them the right pointers towards the right, like, say, mindset decisions, or like mindset thinking, strategy, whatnot, or thinking towards poker. And that's what I'm trying to influence. Like that's what all my thinking is about, basically. And I think Twitch is basically the best thing that is currently happening and still in growth process for poker, because it puts so much fun back in poker, I think. And it's like it puts so much enjoyment back into it.
I absolutely agree with the last point, especially that Twitch and YouTube and creating that content is going to be the best thing that can happen to poker, because I do believe, and I'm probably a little bit differently wired, I do see a lot of negative things happening over the last decade within poker.
Yeah,
that's definitely that. Yeah, you know, the way poker is perceived by the public, and it has been also mentioned in the chat now here on YouTube. I think someone mentioned it, you know, and I think that people just, as a general, like the whole poker industry, like every individual poker player who plays poker, or every person who plays poker, has a responsibility to just tell a different story about poker. That it is actually not just, you know, I go gambling or I just escape from my life and then just, you know, lose a little bit of money here and there, because if people perceive it as a form of escapism, which, by the way, can happen to everything, like watching movies, playing poker, doing anything, then it's obviously very toxic for the whole poker industry. But if people see it as something that you try to make it a challenge, you're excited for learning this new game, and you go play because, sure, you want to have fun, but you have fun because you learn something new, then it's much different. And I think one of the key things that I think we could do is like bring more women into poker. That's like the number one thing.
Good point. Very good point. Absolutely. That's one thing. Well, I guess we can't bring, but we can encourage women coming into a community. And that's something that I really want to like facilitate in my community, because I've realized that in my community, especially, there have been a lot of poker playing women coming up, like in this community. When I look at my, like, let's say, okay, just to throw an example out there, I look at my Instagram, and people that are watching my Instagram, it's like 90% male, 10% female. And
you just
I thought, like, okay, that's probably a fair representation of what it probably is also like in poker. And I don't think that's good. And on my community, I would say it's getting better. Like, it's getting, like, people, like, because we have that community, because we're putting poker out there as something that you can learn, that you can master, that you can learn together, and that you can, like, you know, that is not something that you have to be scared of. Like, if you do it right, that's where I think you get also a lot of women to start playing the game, because, like, what I've realized is that in my community, all of a sudden, all these female players, subscribers, followers, whatnot, start getting active in chat or in the home games and everything, and they get more and more into tune and in touch with the community. And I think that's where you build that connection. And I think because if you look at like a standard poker table, if you go to a poker tournament, big poker tournament, I think if you want to be like a women playing poker, you have to have like a strong self-confidence. Like, you have to be really confident, because there's a lot of male players out there. You have to be willing and to be able to put up with that. You have to also be like resistant to like sexist and whatever comments you get all the time, or whatever it is. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't, like, it's something that really could be perceived as something that's probably tough. So I think this is where things like Twitch come in. And also what I've been thinking is putting poker out there in public channels, like they used to do with, say, now that's your thing, TV Total, you know, the Stefan Raab TV.
Yeah,
the television series, or the games where they actually like have a good balance or good mix of women and men in the game. Like, I did that Rocket Beans show, and there's always women on the show, and they're actually the main characters. Like, they're the most you know, vivid characters in the whole setting, and they light everything up, and it's like they bring a new flavor to the game, and I think that's really important. So good that you put it out there. I think that's really key. Yeah,
because I think that if we want to have the way change poker is perceived, we shouldn't just make it like a one-sex game, right? We shouldn't just have men playing it, because then, of course, women are going to perceive their husbands or boyfriends as, like escaping in poker. But like if it's more a social thing, which typically attracts women way more often, like if we don't just shut up and go into the tank in poker and everything, but we actually talk at the poker tables, and there's some more elements to it, and it's maybe also more often televised, and people are gonna, good commentators are super important, by the way, as well for poker, because then it can describe what's actually happening, not just from a strategic standpoint, but also from a social standpoint, who's like doing well at the moment, and why a certain decision might be tough for someone who just started playing. I think as a commentator, you'd have that role, and that would all lead to making poker a more social game again, and including more women that then can maybe light up a table and make the whole poker industry again bigger, which because I love poker, I want the industry to grow in the future in a very normal sense. And then I think when we want to get other social circles into the game, like the first thing we have to do is get women in, because then poker is no longer like a taboo. It's like a topic you can discuss with a woman, and not just not from the standpoint that you are thinking about, like not from strategy, but more from like a social thing. Why you play the game, why you enjoy it, and they can find different reasons why they enjoy poker. So I think that's a super important.
So funny that you mentioned that point. Also, there is like, maybe I don't know if you realized, but like for the recent bro battles that we did, we had at least one female participant in the group, which is really awesome to see. And then they went on, like Sabi, for instance, went on to also become the dealer of the event. And like even the girlfriends of people that were invited to the game also came along as a rail. And then they didn't even stay at the rail. They started to play later on, even though they had never played before. And afterwards, they actually like enjoy it. Like I remember that one event where we went to, that was like a German event here in Cologne. Where like a lot of my followers also went to just to come and say hi. And I remember like one of them brought their girlfriend, and the girlfriend had never ever played poker before. And the setting, the surrounding, the community thing was so relaxing to see and so much fun, because the atmosphere was fun. It was a community event, that she was so easy to start playing poker. It was not like there's nothing to be like, if you go into a casino, if you go into a poker tournament where there's serious money on the line, like even I would be scared for the first time to go there. Like, and I don't think like women, most women have like I would imagine, I don't want to make this a difference between men and women, but I think like this is something that really is bothering. And like if you put the fun back in there, like all of a sudden his girlfriend actually went on to make the final table in that event while he busted out very early. And like afterwards, she really started, enjoying poker, and she's playing poker with him now. So that's a really cool thing, and I want more of that to happen. So as you say, putting fun and community and the social aspect into poker is hugely important. It's like
and as you say, that's like the breaking out of your comfort zone, which we don't typically do as human beings. We don't just go out of your comfort zones and do random things. So we have to think that it's going to be not so uncomfortable, and when we do, we try out maybe these things. Or
good point.
Sometimes we just need that initial push to try it, and then it's going to work out fine. But that's just an idea. What other good things? Can you think of something else that's really good for poker in the future? Like, let's talk a little bit about the Bahamas 25K tournament.
Oh yeah,
that's an interesting topic as well. What's your take on it?
I think that's also something that needs to be tried. I'm not sure. Like, I think this is just a great idea to have such a high buy-in event, and like give out passes to people, and like actually give them a chance to have a dream of their lifetime come true, because that's what every player that really starts playing poker. When I started out in poker, I know my dream was one day I want to play the World Series main event. 10K buy-in, I was thinking like, oh man, if I reach that, if I can pay up 10K and like play the World Series, that would be awesome. And it's something that kind of sticks with you. So I think this is something that is really, really crucial. And I love the idea so much. And I also love the idea in the sense that, because as we were talking about it being more social, giving chances out to personalize or to actually have a personal relationship with the people that you hand out the passes to, not have them all played out in a random way. Like, you know, there's all in shootouts, there's passes given away in other tournaments, but there's like personalized challenges for each streamer, for each community, and so forth. And that's something that I really realized is really key, because like people are now connecting to that person that actually wins that platinum pass, and they're attached to it, and they will root for them. And this is something that can get a hype going. And I think if that's also something, because of the prize pool, that will reach the public for sure, because people will be in newspapers or whatnot, in the public press, they'll report about it. So I think it's a really, really good idea.
I'm actually a bit afraid that aspect is not like the intention behind it, because I also love that aspect about it. Like when I look at platinum pass winners, that you have a certain amount of winners that, it might be just luck based, and some of it might be skill based, like a poker tournament, and some of it might be, social based, and you have like a mix of everyone getting to that final tournament. But I'm a bit afraid that in the end it's just about like the story that someone, from a very small number, almost zero, like 11 cent or whatever, made it to like 1 million or something. That it's made that, it's more just a look for the story, which it's definitely hopefully going to be good. The Moneymaker story was great, Darwin Moon, and all these big winners.
Moneymaker,
of course, these stories are great, and we're all looking for a story like that. But at the same time, why don't we just make Twitch this story like that? People, from that audience and other circles around poker, just get into these areas. And what I found a bit, why not just reduce the buy-in and then getting more people than just 300 in there. Also have, I think, as I said, a little bit of mix, like even more skill challenges, and then also social challenges or social settings where people win. And I think a little bit of a mix of everything would have been even much better. Making the event even bigger than what it is, because in the end, in the grand scope, the 10 million guaranteed are not that big. I mean, it's certainly
I know what you mean. It's big, but like in comparison to the other high rollers that are being played out, of course.
I think it could be much bigger with the right even it just could be even more. And I also have to say that I do enjoy those challenges and those different ways, and you can qualify, because it's how I started as well. Because imagine you're that guy with like a $0 bankroll or 100, or like you're at the beginning, you try to go in there with a free roll. And I know that a lot of people are out there, and that's how I started. That's why I even created my account TV Total I Win, because I wanted to win TV Total show that didn't go. And I was exactly the same thing. I was always looking for those free rolls and just try to build my bankroll in poker. And I eventually succeeded with like some very smaller ones and then small dollar tournaments. And I want that people have the same opportunity these days. And I think it's possible to enable them that. It doesn't cost too much. And it is going to be the right people that get into poker.
Right.
Not going to be just a clientele who just tries to gamble and it's not really who we want.
I see what you mean. The thing is, though, what I really like about this is that this is something that really tries out things that haven't been there yet. And I think this is also crucial. There's also something that I like in poker, and that's what I also like about, for instance, the games that we streamed, like when I got you as a guest on my show. We streamed all these new variants that PokerStars is putting out there. I really like that aspect, like trying to create something new, something that hasn't been there before, that connects to new people, that gives them a chance to do something that hasn't been done before. And I think that's also pretty key. It's like, innovation. Innovation is just so important. And just when you innovate, you have to always try out, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like it could blow up. It could be not as much as you as you anticipated or as you hoped for. But like the same thing is with what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm just trying to innovate and try to find new things that I can do that makes that makes everything better.
Yeah, actually, when I was with you guys in Cologne, I also found that I was playing. We were playing some cash games after the show and everything, and it was a lot of fun to me. I mean, we played like 5-cent, 10-cent cash games with each other, and for me, it was a lot of fun because we always had to come up with a new game. Yeah, and I suddenly discovered that new aspect of it, and then I had a lot of enjoyment thinking about the new game from a strategic angle, because it's just what interests me. Other people would not think about strategy, but that's like the individual's decision. And I think that it can also be happening online a bit more often. But I think it's really important that I think, for example, those new shows that we talked about, Unfold, Hold'em, etc. I think they're great, but I would just give people a bit of better chance to win in general. Just make it really, really a cheap format, even cheaper. For example, you don't have to put in high stakes. Like, you could just make it very micro stakes, like up to 25 cents, 50 cents. And that way just make it much cheaper as a game, so that you're not afraid that regs jump in and just make a ton of cash in those games and basically bleed out the money. Like that's not happening. But give some people a chance to build bankrolls in those small games, which is definitely still possible even with the current rake structure. But I would even make it cheaper so people have more enjoyment, because they have more winning sessions. That's really important in cash games in particular. People have to have winning sessions. And if the game is expensive, then it's not going to happen. It's not going to be catching on as much popularity. And I think that the price tag was often a little bit too high, and it hurts the game a little bit. What do you think is the most, was out of the 4 or 3 that we had, what was the most fun on Stars? Like, we had a split
the games. Well, I really enjoyed Unfold. I don't know why. It was just very, very relaxing form of poker to me. It was like I could chill out I can wind down on my session at the end and just play some Unfold, because it was like, play for the Unfold here and there. But I'm not sure. I actually liked Split Hold'em a lot. I really liked it. I don't know why. It was just like, because I think the fun, as you said, as you put it, I like to figure things out. So I like to look for the strategies that other people haven't thought of yet, that you can use to to crack the game, or to sort of at least find a little bit of a hack for a time until somebody else finds that hack, and that's something that's that you can't really do that anymore in MTTs or cash games, because so much is known and so much is out there. So the hacks basically is just in the nuances, and there's some basic hacks. There used to be, especially when I was playing Magic, there's certain hacks where you build a new deck with new cards, and you figure out a certain hack to completely demolish the metagame at the moment. Like, what the metagame is, and you come up with a new deck that just crushes the metagame. And nobody, until everybody adjusts, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And you can really, and this is something that really always got me going. That's what I liked about Magic as well. And that's what I like about poker. So once I figured out in Split Hold'em, the concepts of overbetting and going all in and stuff like that, until people figured out, okay, well, I got to do that. That was really fun. So yeah, I think Split Hold'em would be my pick right now.
Yeah, it's probably the same for me, because of the same reasons, because I had the split game background and I could just take my skills to that game, and it was really easy to win some money at first and use those strategies, because people don't know what to do at first, and that's really the key about mixed games. By the way, there is going to be probably a mixed game series next year, maybe on Party Poker. I hope PokerStars is going to do the same, that mixed games get promoted a bit more. But then here's the thing. I think when you create those mixed game series, the person who's creating it has to understand the game. Literally has to understand the influence of rake and everything that belongs to the game. Otherwise, you're not going to create the right environment. For example, as soon as you add in 4 cards, 5 cards, or 6 card Omaha or any versions of it, you have to get rid of everything you know about No Limit Hold'em and rake, etc., because it's a game of very small edges. That means you have to make that game fair for people, and reduce the rake sometimes by 70, 80, 90%, and that's no joke. And sometimes, obviously, that's not attractive, because you have to have the servers up and everything. But then, you can make the game, but maybe reduce rake by 50, 60%, because it's a game of small edges. And for example, the game I played in the end with Pantao, with Murat until the 5 a.m., we played bomb pots. We play bomb pots 5 cards, so we get all 5 cards 3-way. We get a flop, and then we have to basically go with our hand or not. And that's a very, very, the edges are not that big.
Right. Yeah.
It's a complete gambling game, but it's a lot of fun. And if you actually have no rake because you're playing in a home game, it's fun, because Yeah, well, if you make good decisions, you're gonna win something, right?
Right.
And but the variance is extreme, and but I enjoyed it a lot to play that game.
Definitely.
Because yeah, I could think about how the 5 cards interact with the 3 cards, and how likely it was that one of my 2 opponents held a better hand or had so much equity against me. I think it's a super fun poker game
Right.
to play, but it's impossible to play with normal rake, like the standard no limit hold'em rake. So that's like, you can't do that, and that's basic.
Still thinking, like, I came to think about like innovation. When it comes to innovation, I also loved creating my own magic cards back in the days. That's something I really enjoyed. So I think it's like innovation is really key. Like that's what kind of I like about Magic, or what I used to like about Magic, is like they come up with new sets all the time. Of course, it's tough to keep up, and if you really want to be good at it, and if you want to be successful, you have to keep up with a lot of stuff, and it's like it can get kind of tough, and it can get very expensive as well. But I think that's what keeps the game going. That's what keeps environments like developing and consistently growing. And I think that's why Magic is still Magic is super popular still. Every time I see it, it's like it's growing. I think
it is a game with a long history, also because of its nice complexity overall, and also the new game mechanics that you see. There's always some new game mechanics coming out, and they somehow work with the other game mechanics that are existing. And I would still love playing the game. Right now, I just don't have the time, I would say, but maybe I just should. Like, actually, I like some.
We should play against each other. Let's play a match.
Let's play a Magic match. Yeah, I would actually. But what I also found really tragic about Magic is, again, the price point. It's the same thing about as mixed games in poker with too many cards. The price point, like, make it more affordable. Like, why can I not invest 100 and have a competitive deck online?
Right.
That I can play for, like, let's say 6 months or a year. Like that's like €100 or dollars or whatever is going to be for me affordable to say, okay, if I get a competitive deck in exchange for 100, and the 100 should pay the developer's cost, then I'm totally cool playing that online. But if I have to, like Hearthstone, like, pay 50, another 50, another 50, like pay like 250 until I get like the competitive. With Hearthstone, it's barely working. With maybe 150 or so, I'm okay with the costs. But a lot of people aren't, and that's not cool. You want to make.
Right.
I think it sucks for a lot of people who want free-to-play versions. Well, you can give them a free-to-play fun version and maybe make them like a closed environment where the stronger decks that pay to win are excluded, or just make 2 separate pools. Like, I don't know, like with limited card pools or something. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. You mean the draft formats, or
no? Yeah, like draft formats are cool. Like Arena in Hearthstone is very cool because you can play it. Everyone has the same chances, basically, even though you don't pay for it, or you pay very small amount for it. That's why I love Arena, and the same drafting in Magic the Gathering. But the costs will be really high for like standard competitive. You always have to pay a lot of money, and people cannot get into it because it costs them a lot. And when I was younger, fortunately, my mother was very generous with me, and she bought me the cards.
Right.
I don't want to know how much it was, but it was certainly over 1,000. And
I thought back on that topic, and I thought back like to my roots, why I'm like doing what I'm doing, and I feel sometimes like I actually was hustling for cards very early on. Like we were selling and buying cards and trading cards all the time, and we were really like kind of sort of making a business out of this at a very, very early stage without even knowing it. And that's how you could basically afford all that expensive stuff on the decks. But as you say, I think drafting was always my favorite. Like drafting is kind of like, it's also very, very, I like the social interaction, because you draft with like 8 people at a table, and you play like these different matchups, and so it's like, it's a lot of fun. And I think it's the fairest, kind of the fairest form, but it has a lot of variants, obviously. But
yeah, absolutely. We should have done one when I was in Cologne. We could have done a draft. Yeah. And maybe someday in the future can do a draft, because I've done that like a year ago with my brother, who also used to play Magic the Gathering, and some of his friends who also play Magic the Gathering.
Right.
And then we did a draft, and it was super fun. Like I like it from time to time, because it keeps your it's like a new game again. It takes a while until you get all the cards right, and that's super interesting.
And that's a new learning experience, and that's why I think that's also the key. Like that's why I think innovation is key to keeping things like healthy and alive and keep things going forward. So yeah, it's a good point.
All right. I just want to ask you also some other questions. Or do you have anything else that you think we wouldn't talk about that you would desperately want to talk about? I want to give you the chance.
Right now, I can't really think of much, except for it's so funny that we talk about this thing, like what can we do to make poker more attractive, and like that's exactly what I'm currently doing. Like I think the entire month of October, I'm basically on. It's the first time in a long time now. That I'm taking like the month. I'm probably going to take the whole month off streaming. Like I'm starting to stream right now for the first week, but then I'm going to be on travels all October just in order to accommodate different promotions and things that revolve around making poker more attractive. Like for instance, like I'm going to run it up to the Run It Up Reno, which is also like it's sort of like the bro battle. Like on a bigger scale, people like come together and socialize and have so much fun. And they also stream that thing, so it's gonna be an awesome thing for poker as well. If you see people want to be part of like such conventions, I always wanted to also be part of conventions when it was back in the Magic days. Like I wanted to be there just to connect with people, play the same game and so forth, and not really worry about the money too much, or worry about can I afford this game, or is this really competitive? If I lose, like I feel bad about it. Whatnot. So yeah, making it more social, and the next aspect are going to be some other promos that involve new people coming to poker and that also have a broader reach or have a different audience. Like I did the training sessions last week with the Fortnite streamers. Yes. I think that's something I really want to focus on. I've started to connect with those people, and I think reaching out into those communities and like telling them about poker and telling them like how they can actually, it's so fun to see how they actually picked up poker and how they learned poker so easily, basically, like so naturally, because it just goes to show that it's the game that people can really learn if they really have fun playing it. And if you find people that can transport the fun out there and like transport the fun through what they're doing, I think that's key. So that's what I'm trying to focus on this month, basically.
That's quite incredible, because then you can really go into completely new areas where people haven't played the game before.
And I like seeing that. It's like people come up to me and say like, "Isn't this boring to you? Like explaining somebody new how to play poker?" And no, this is the best thing ever. Like I love this. I love seeing this like click. You know, when they go like, so if I raise, that's better than just calling. Or like if I bet here, I see, I have to bet more. I see why now. Okay, so because otherwise he's just gonna call. Okay, so and if it just makes click with them, and this is just this is what gives me that feeling of fulfillment.
It's very rewarding sometimes when you also think about coaching in particular. Sometimes it's much more rewarding to teach someone who doesn't know as many things as someone else. Like at least from my experience, I would say that coaching someone who is not at that far or as far is more enjoyable, because you can teach that person, and that person also doesn't believe that he knows it all already. Like there's some people who think they know it all, and then they get to you and they ask you questions, which you can of course answer, but then they somehow don't learn as much anymore because they think they're already that far and they don't have to work as hard. So it's much different in that regard as well. So I have that similar experience with people, or at least even completely new people, as you say, who learn about the game because they can take advice much better than people who think they know it all. Yeah, for sure. All right, so a couple of questions that I have also for you, or in general, what books do you read? Do you have certain books that you've read over the last year, or some more in the self-development area, or what do you try to learn these days outside of poker?
Well, actually, I'm not a reader. Like I don't learn by reading. I just don't enjoy reading as much. I've never really read that much. I loved writing, so I've written my ebooks and everything. That was always fun to me. I used to write writing was a big thing for me back in the days. I used to write a lot of creative stuff when I was smaller. But like reading has never been mine, so I've never really read much. What I do is I listen a lot to podcasts. Like I probably like I listen to a podcast a day, at least a podcast a day. And
what podcast could you recommend? What are those?
Well, the start would be like for business is the Gary Vee podcast. That's one that I'm always listening to. Recently, I've started the listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast. That's a lot of good stuff going down there. Like he's interviewing a lot of high performers, and that's so interesting to hear from so many, because you learn so much from different fields and different. I love to hear from all these different people. Like I've been coaching those other streamers is the same deal, like hearing from other people in other fields, how they have developed their expertise, how they have become good at their craft and what they think about life. And it's so funny because like in the end, they all come to the same, like sort of similar or same conclusions. They describe it in a different way and they come to that conclusion on a different path, but it's sort of like leading all up together, and you can like build your own, I don't know how to put it. Like you can construct your own. It sort of confirms what I have learned through poker as well. And it's very funny to see, and it's very, very enlightening as well, because it gives you a different perspective on other things that you have maybe not considered yet, that they have considered, and you think like, oh, if they see it that way, well, and they're so successful with their craft, maybe there's something also that's applicable to poker or to your craft or to streaming on Twitch or whatnot. So it's always, you can always learn a lot from.
I think through those conversations you can expand on your knowledge basically about your industry by looking at an example of others and learn from their role models. Yeah.
It's super interesting because you learn so much also about like general things that you have never known about. So that's what I try to do. And like, that's another podcast. Let me think. What else? Do I have any other podcasts on right now? That's actually the ones that I'm listening to. There's some entertainment podcasts that I also listen to, but
of course,
like, it's funny. Even the entertainment podcasts that I'm listening to, I'm not listening to them in a form of, I'm not listening in a sense that I'm just trying to entertain myself. I'm listening to them, and while I'm listening, I'm trying to understand how are they right now the masters of their craft, because I'm listening to the very good German podcasts that are really on the top of the list, and they're really good. They're super funny, and I'm laughing all the time. But I'm thinking like, how are they doing it? Like, you know, what are they doing different than say other entertainers, or what's their secret? What's their approach? And that's kind of like the standpoint that I'm taking.
What I also have done lately is, and it's really interesting, I think, is that I've listened to German podcasts again, or German, not just podcasts, but more speeches again to German speakers.
Right.
And one of them, I don't know if you've heard about him, is Tobias Beck. Have you heard about him?
I've heard of him. Yeah, I think so.
I think he's pretty talented at what he does, and he has that whole story about him where, you know, he was working for Lufthansa, which is a German airplane company. So he was serving people who were really successful as a steward, and then he basically asked those people why they could, you know, afford a plane ticket that was the same amount as his entire yearly salary.
Well,
and that just somehow struck me a little bit. So it's like, okay, so this guy was really smart. So he just went to people who had a lot of success, or just found answers to all their questions, and he just asked them. He first, you know, he served them well as a steward. You know, he tried to keep them happy, and then, you know, just casually ask some questions, and you know, get your answers to where he is. And after 15, 20 years, he now is a super successful speaker, who has his own classes that he teaches about life, about business, about, you know, how he found his rules and the answers. And the longer I am in poker, the more interested I am into those areas, like finding answers to what I want to do also in the future. And, you know, with poker in the back, like I probably will always play poker, but I will also do other things that I enjoy and that basically bring me forward as a human being, and not just, you know, a strategist, basically, because I've been, you know, developing my strategic skills for the last, I don't know, 20 years. And it's at this point, I also want to go into other areas. And that's why I'm doing this podcast a little bit, because I want to talk to other people, what they, you know, thought about. I'm very open to what other people think about this industry, and what they do in order to go on with their way, what their thoughts are.
Yeah.
I will also probably invite some people in here that will quit poker eventually, and like will be super interested in people who leave poker behind and why. Because for some people that might be the best thing to do depending on where they are. I don't think I'm going to get out of poker the next years because I'm still trying to get somewhere. So I'm somewhat hungry to get to the highest limits. But that's something I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So what would you tell your younger self from 10 years younger if you had the chance? What would you tell the Xflixx? It's like 10%.
It's funny. I have to quote. I don't know who said it, but I heard it recently on one of the podcasts. I'm not sure what it was. It was probably a Tim Ferriss show. But it's the same thing. I would just somebody said just relax. It's all good. Just do your thing. Do your thing and relax. And that's my mantra right now. I mean, I'm living by this. I don't even think about what's going to be next or what's going to be tomorrow. Of course, I'm strategizing. Of course, I'm thinking, okay, so what am I going to do next week, next month, and what's my plan for the next couple of streams or whatnot. But I'm never thinking a broad spectrum of saying oh my God, I have to do I have my business plan. I have to be that successful in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years or whatnot. I'm 37 right now, and I still feel super young. And that's something that I've also learned is it doesn't matter. I still feel the same as I felt 10 years ago, let's say, when I started out playing professionally as a poker player. And it's I don't know, I want to always have that itch that when I find something new, I want to just go for it. And that's also what poker teaches me, or what poker taught me. It's if you like it, if you really enjoy it, if you can get up for it out of your bed in the early morning, it just gets you going, just go for it. And that's what I would also tell my younger self. Don't let anybody talk you into doing something you don't enjoy, or doing something just because you have to pay for the bills, or you have to make sure you get your pension in the end when you're old and stuff like that. So I don't look for that because I know I could be it's serious. I have had that experience life-wise because of my chronic disease. I could be dead next day. And I had that experience twice in my life so far. And I don't want that. And I'm constantly, there's days where I get constantly reminded of that feeling. And it kind of gives me that idea, okay, so if I go back in time now and find my younger self, I'm going to tell, well, just do your thing, do your thing, relax, don't stress out. I'm still bad at this because you still stress out over things all the time. And my head is rotating on a daily basis and on a minute basis. But I'm still I want to try and get as good as possible as this mindset hack, probably, to just enjoy and see what you can do, what you can do as your best possible self in that day that you're right now doing right now. So if it's something you want to do, if I want to stream tournaments today, just do the best I can to stream the best possible game that I can bring up, connect with your community and do what you enjoy, and just not stress out about what's going to be tomorrow or next week, whatever.
So you basically already answered the $100 million question.
What was the $100 million question?
What would you do tomorrow if you had $100 million?
I don't. Probably wake up, do the same shit.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's actually something I've done from shoutouts to actualize.org. It's a pretty big YouTube channel with a guy called Leo Gura. And he has his life purpose course, which I have taken, and I'm almost at the end. And one of his questions is basically, what would you do if you had $100 million? And it's I probably would be at the same place. And if that's I would have some more options. I would
for sure
be able to afford certain coaches that I would not afford right now. Or it's just a risk to pay people for certain products or talking to them. But they might be worth it, but they might not. And if you don't have the money, it's
thinking about pointless. The $100 million would probably just propel what I'm trying to do right now. I would get up in the morning and say, okay, now with $100 million, I can hire the best editor. I can hire the best manager. I can hire a really good guy that takes care of whatnot that I'm not willing to take care of, so I can focus on streaming. But I would still stream.
So, you can delegate what you're doing, basically.
And I can save time. I would be more relaxed, of course. I would have tons of other options to grow the things that I'm doing, but I would still do the same thing.
It's also one of the other questions I would ask. If you tomorrow had no fear, what would you do first? It's like really some good questions that you can ask yourself as a person, as a poker player, no matter who you are. What would you do if you had no fear or not the lack of money, right? It's like two things that hold people back.
Yeah.
If you have fear or you have the lack of money, that you do what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm asking these things to I guess podcast.
That's funny. Like I got asked, I think yesterday or the day before was the day where I got asked, is there a dream job that you have? And I'm like, yeah, the thing that I'm doing right now. It's like, there's nothing else I would think of like that I would rather do. Because if there was, I would probably put my efforts into getting there or trying to get there.
Absolutely. And yeah, with that, I want to, basically wrap things up here. Thanks you very much for being here on the podcast. That was a pleasure.
Yeah,
and, glad to have you back somewhere in the future if you want to still have this talk. Yeah. And also thanks to the audience in here. We got Thompson World also now tuning in. TD still there, Dimitra. If you guys have still any questions, now is the time to drop it before we cut the stream. Opinion on staking groups like standard backing. You have any answer to that? Like staking?
Well, like backing or staking has never been my thing. Like I don't do it, and I've never done it before. I like to play with my own money. I'm always cautious when it comes to that, because I know that people are that there can be problems coming up when you like, if you're not the closest with the people that you work with when it's about money. Like I will be very, very cautious. So I'm not into that at all.
I mean, I can maybe quickly answer this one thing: trust. If you have an area with a backer, you have to build on trust. You have to know the person, get to know each other, and just do what makes a lot of sense. Don't go into games that you cannot beat, or that are so high variance you're never getting out of makeup. Don't ruin yourself with makeup. So don't really play for a backer that then you owe 30,000. You can no longer play those games in the future. That's obviously pretty silly. That's basically my take on staking in general. I would only do it with very few people, and for very if I go into staking and I'm talking currently with someone then into high stakes games, basically that I couldn't afford the risk, but that I would be pretty certain that I can beat them, then it makes obviously sense, because someone else takes care of the finances of the risk that you cannot take, but you take care of the skill that you bring to those games. And that's basically what I can say. And Thompson World, greetings also out to you. Hat der Felix oder nur einen Satz, sich selber zu motivieren? Someone needs some motivation here from you, or from.
Here we go.
But yeah,
got one right here. Can you see that?
Guys, there you have it. Doing always wins.
Yeah, I mean that's breaking it down. I've put that on one of my shirts and my hoodies. Like I'm wearing this like a mantra. It's become a mantra of mine, because like I want to wake up in the morning, and when I have an idea and I know I'm convinced that this could be good and that this could be fun, actually, I just go for it. I just want to do it. I just want to push myself to do it all the time. It's going to be tough at times, and I don't beat myself up if I don't do it, but I will eventually go ahead and say like, okay, so, it's just the wisest thing to say, like you only regret the things that you didn't do. So just go for the things that you want to do and just do them. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like you fail. Okay, so what? You just get up. I know that from poker. So I just do something else. Maybe if it doesn't work, I figure out a new strategy or whatnot, if I'm still into it. So
yeah, your willingness to fail, I think, is extremely important. And people forget about that. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? Even if you go broke.
True.
Like, even if you go broke, what is the worst thing that can happen? You can always get back up if you believe in yourself, and if you believe that you can somehow make money, and if you're a valuable skill set for this world, and just have to work on yourself that you have valuable enough things to give so you can make money in the end if poker doesn't work for you.
It's a funny thing. Like, now that I think about it, like when I was playing professionally, that was kind of like an epiphany for me that I still have these days. When things are not going right. I had that at the beginning of the year when I was downswinging in my tournaments. I'm thinking like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm going broke. So what I'm going to do? Well, I can still build a bankroll. If I'm still having enough fun playing poker, I can still build a bankroll. But once I got it into my head that, just realize, okay, so that money that I built with poker could be gone. Well, I'm still free rolling it. So what? nothing changes. So I'm like, once that was taking a load off my chest, and that helped me just to realize, okay, just visualizing the worst case scenario and just go with, okay, that's the worst case scenario that can happen. Well, you can still do something about it. And that kind of like helped me, just figure it out from there.
And also the reminder that poker analogy, you will ultimately go broke one day. That's who was that? Tommy Angelo. Yeah, with like his mindset series, The Eightfold Path to Poker Enlightenment. Shout out to Tommy Angelo. Would also obviously love to have him as a guest here on the podcast in the future, because I'm a huge fan of his teachings and how he thinks about poker. And he said, you will ultimately go broke one day, and it's the day you die. Yeah. And that is true. And you cannot avoid that anyway. So what are you afraid of?
Yeah. True.
Okay. One thing, but just a quick wrap-up question, so we don't neglect people here in the chat. TD, tournaments or cash games, what's easier to master?
That's a tough question. I mean, it depends. I think it depends on, there's a lot of nuances in tournament poker as well, as I learned, and I never really appreciated those. I always thought like, okay, short stake poker is short stake poker, and that's that, and should be easy to figure out, and it's just math. But that's pretty much true, or used to be true, of fixed limit hold'em cash games and no limit to some extent. I think it comes down to what you enjoy more. If you're really into more complex, like multi-street betting, decision-making trees, because cash game is what this is what cash games are about, especially when you play deeper stacked. Short stack poker, it's more the nuances of learning, like what's the average tendencies in the player pool that you play, and do you shove wider, do you shove tighter, do you call tighter, do you not call as wide, and so forth. I don't know. I think I would say, in general, it's really tough. Like for me, it was definitely easier to learn tournaments, but that was because I already had a background on poker, background on cash games as well. I don't know. It's a tough question to answer. I don't know what's going to be easier.
I completely agree with like whatever is fun to you. Both formats will be super hard to master. You will, mastery $10,000 rule. You will have to grind in there and do a lot of work before you're gonna master any of these formats. Actually,
coming to think of it, especially tournament poker or sit and goes, because people say that all the time, like sit and goes is an easy way to build a bankroll. I kind of agree, but still, I think like ICM is very complex. I mean, for a cash game player, ICM was the most complex idea or thing to wrap my head around, and it took me a long time and a lot of numbers, calculations, and practicing to actually understand what ICM is, instead of just like, oh yeah, this is just, I have ace-7 suited, I can jam this, I have ace-king, I'm all in. So, it's different, and that was very tough to wrap my head around, and that I think that's still something that I'm on to try and master. And I think it's kind of also an art, sort of an art, because tournament poker is very complex because it's so unique. Like in cash games, spots are repetitive in some way when you play a certain stack size. But in tournament poker, like stack sizes and different situations and positions and everything, they can be very, very unique, I think. So that's sort of like still very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, for tournament and cash, the main difference that I see is tournaments have more pre-flop elements and cash games have more turn and river elements. It's like the simplification of it. So if you do enjoy pre-flop work, then do more tournaments. If you enjoy river and turn work and complex situations and over betting, then do more cash games. That's all from my end. So I think we got through the questions as well. Hope you guys. I mean, for GrowBar, it's the same thing for grinding 180s. Whatever makes fun to you, and you just have to enjoy becoming better at that. So again, thank you again for being here on the podcast. That was a pleasure.
That was a pleasure.
I'm gonna do the last word if you want to say anything.
Definitely. I mean, my last word is just like, doing always wins, guys. Just do more shit you like and you enjoy, because that's the bottom line that all the conclusions that we draw on the podcast today. Just do what you enjoy most, and if you feel up to it, just do it. if you're convinced that it's a good thing. It needs